epic tale,
rife with destiny, adventure, blood loss, and good against evil.
Well, look at you.
impossible.
You're a superhero.
Good eye. I am the Tick.
Bulletproof. What do you bench?
No idea.
Can you fly?
Good grief.
Destiny's on the line, Arthur. Accept the charges.
Is this gonna be a long call? Could I sit?
Sure. How can I put this? Murder. It's just not cool. Impolite! Quite a kick. What the world needs now is us. Sweet us.
No.
Oh, yes! Ah, this is the good stuff.
I'm breaking a little bit.
Taser time! Tickle!
2 bullets, point blank, and high voltage, plus a 3-story drop, and look at you. You're as alive as a daisy.
Thanks so much for being here.
Hi. You're welcome so much for us being here.
Congratulations on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's talk about getting cast as the Tick, as the lead character in the Tick. This is the sort of the third incarnation of the Tick, and it's the original creator of the Tick, of the comic, right? Really?
That's right, yeah. Ben Edlund.
Yeah, bringing it to Amazon. How did they pitch this to you? How did they bring you on?
They said to me, when Ben wrote the pilot script, it says The Tick, a parody. And I thought, wow, a superhero parody. That doesn't sound particularly like exciting or, do you know what I mean? It makes you think of something like far less sophisticated and beautiful as the script turned out to be when I read it, you know, and it's really, I don't think it is a parody, really. I think it's kind of its own thing. I don't know what it is, but maybe somebody else knows. But yeah, and then Ben asked me, would I play the Tick? And I thought, well, who wouldn't want to play a superhero, you know? And you know, having done it for 6 months, I now know the answer to that question. But yeah, it's the show's turned out really, really great, you know?
Well, I think you used the word beautiful just a second ago, and that is a surprising word to use with the Tick, with a superhero parody, and it's absolutely true. It looks beautiful, it's got a lot of feeling, and it's really funny.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk about the voice, because you know the Tick has had a fairly famous voice behind it before.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you ended up going back and looking at that at all, or if you tried to develop your own thing completely based off of what Ben talked to you about.
I didn't see any of the previous incarnations of the Tick. I just read the comic books that Ben gave me, and I haven't heard the voices of these other Ticks. You know, I only allowed myself to look at a printout of the waveforms of their voice. That was the only thing the only concession I made. But
you really study up then. Wow.
Yeah. But Ben said to me, think of a 1970s radio announcer. And I just thought, you know, it was a voice to me. When I was a kid, I had this sort of romantic notion of America as being this paradise of fun and...
How's that turned out to be?
Yeah.
Welcome to this week.
Yeah, I know.
Paradise of fun.
My God. You know, whenever I see somebody checking their phone, they go, oh, I'm like, oh God, what's he done now? What's he done? I mean, you know, what else can we talk about? I mean, you know, anyway, the tick.
It's really hard. It is a paradise of fun and frivolity, usually,
Yeah,
just not. Griffin, you know, you play Arthur, and Arthur's really, his backstory is really the emotional through line for the show. Talk about how you felt when you first got the script and this sort of expanding of who Arthur is beyond just the sidekick.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of the Tick in previous incarnations for a majority of my life now. Like, I am younger than the Tick is as a property. So I've grown up in a world where the Tick has always existed and got into it at a formative age and was, like a lot of fans, waiting. There were always these sort of rumors that maybe they were going to bring it back in some new version. But they always were just whispers. And then I got an email for an audition with the Tick as the subject heading, and I went, oh, wow, it's happening now? So what, am I playing like the neighbor, or the pizza guy or something? And then I open it up and I go, oh, it's Arthur. That's crazy, because that's a big part. And then I read the script and saw how much it was the backbone of it, and I simultaneously went, well, this is incredible. I've never wanted a part more, as if I wouldn't already want to be part of this show, play this character. Now this inception of this character is so brilliant. And then also, oh, wow, there's no chance I'm going to get this. There is no chance with this much writing on this character they will hire me.
I mean, we all thought that, didn't we?
Yeah, everyone did.
Did they hire you?
I don't know. I think I'm on sort of like a trial run period right now. I'm waiting to hear how these ones go over. Yeah.
It's a far more rich sort of depiction of Arthur than I think. I have actually personally never read Tick comic books, but I mean, inside the comics, is it much more similar? Because the other broadcast television versions, you know, Arthur was very much just a sidekick.
Yeah, that's how it is in the comics too. I mean, Arthur's always kind of been an archetype. You know? And it was an archetype that had a lot of emotion in it because he is an emotional character. That archetype is a neurotic, you know? Someone who is fearful, very aware of everything that's going on around him, a better understanding of the circumstances than the Tick. But his response is usually just to cower away and freak out. And this really kind of fleshed all that out. I mean, that's what's exciting about it is, you know, people ask me, like, is it intimidating to play a character that's existed for so long and been played well by other people, but so much of what this character gets to do hasn't happened in previous versions, and this backstory is all new. So it's this balance between, like, okay, I'm a fan of the Tick. I want to make sure that any other fan of the Tick sees this and goes, that's Arthur. He's got it. That reminds me of the character I love. But also I'm getting to play a lot of new stuff and new dimensions.
Did you ever ask the creator of the original comic and this show why he ended up sort of expanding on Arthur that way, where it came from?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben's big gambit with this version of the show, you know, every time he's had a hand in every version that's existed. And a thing that's really admirable about Ben is that he doesn't want to just sort of do the nostalgia cash-in of like, okay, I have a property people like, I can just do it again and make a quick buck. Every time he reinvents the Tick, he wants to come at it from some new angle, reflect what's changed in pop culture, find a new story angle, or whatever it is. And he had been working in the time between this version and the Warburton version in 2001 on Angel, on Firefly, on Gotham, and all these shows that had these sort of larger, more emotional narratives. And he gave himself this challenge of, can I make the Tick have stakes like that? It's always been sort of like a satire first and foremost. Can I make it have emotional resonance and dramatic stakes and everything? And you don't really want the Tick to change. The thing that's beautiful about the Tick as a character is he is so confident and assured in who he is and what he is, which is just a force for good. So in order to have a sort of emotional arc, it was like, well, I guess it's got to be Arthur then. I think it just sort of by process of elimination, Arthur became the character that had to grow and reluctantly become a hero.
Valerie, you play Arthur's friend, really, and
sister.
Sister. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, she wouldn't hang out with him if she didn't have to.
I was questioning that. I must have missed the word sister because I kept questioning that in the episode.
We're not friends. We're family.
Why is she driving him around?
What is this going on? Talk about your relationship with Arthur. With your character's relationship with Arthur.
Well, he's my brother.
Outside of that, expand upon that.
They are very close as siblings and as friends, largely because. She's essentially kind of always been his caretaker and in many ways also a parent, because in Arthur's backstory and in the way that his character is treated in the pilot, his history of mental illness is very real. And sort of what our history consists of is this life where we both lost our father, and he lost his mind, and our mother couldn't deal, and so Dot did, and he needed medical professionals, so Dot became one, and that's the way that she always exists. Is she needs to be useful, she needs to have something to do, and Arthur gives her a lot to do, and many ways to be useful. But it's also a character that has existed in every iteration, but Ben really wanted to recreate her as well and to make her a fully fleshed out, very dimensional person, and didn't want her to exist in the way that she has, and many characters in this kind of archetype do, where they are these sort of negative reactionary like voices of reason, So what I think is really lovely, and I think it's the defining moments for her as a character are the scenes with Arthur, and you can really see the tenderness and the empathy between them, how everything she does comes from a place of really deep love and protectiveness, and not a desire to hold him back in any way. But at the same time, that's kind of at odds with the journey that he's taking within the first season to sort of potentially become this hero that he always wanted to be.
Right, she's not the kind of, for lack of a better phrase, the sort of stereotypical female character in
you can say it,
shows like this or movies like this that would show up and almost be the nag or be the person who is contrary to everything that the male character is doing. She's much more on his side and trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that, when Ben first talked to me about doing the show, that was really the selling point for me, was he wanted her to be different, and he acknowledged the fact that this is an issue within the genre, and at the same time, it's kind of been an ongoing challenge to figure out how to find dimension within somebody who is sort of, in some ways, limited to that role, So it's been kind of the great journey about this in general, is the show is kind of dissecting and subverting some of the tropes of the genre, and every character has to do that in their own way, And that's Dot's, is always how to find agency within this world that kind of wants to sideline her, because she's not super.
Brennan, you are super in the show.
Ish, yeah.
Super-ish, kind of the famous superhero. Talk about your character.
His name is Superion, and he is the most famous superhero around. He just is, just a fact, Val.
Sorry, I don't even know why.
Look, I'm not putting any judgment on him, good or bad. I'm just saying he's the most famous one. It'll change. So he also is a force for good, but not in the same sort of enthusiastic puppy dog, as Peter has said before, toddler way that the Tick is. And he doesn't really he doesn't really connect with the humans that he has basically charged himself with protecting as a species. But he's sort of a mystery as far as that's concerned. Why did he come here to do that? And does he want anything? And these are things that we're trying to figure out throughout the course of the season. So,
Yara, you are one of the villains of the show. Talk about your character, please.
Well, Miss Lint is electric, and she can fry people to death. What'd you say? Like, what'd you say? And she can electrocute people, but when her powers backfire and her charging bracelets aren't working, since she's electric, all the lint that's around gets stuck on her, hence the name Miss Lint. And she finds herself, when the story takes place, when this incarnation takes place, she's kind of stuck in a rut, which is something that I really liked and that I don't think you see in super villains a lot. You don't see their backstory and their loneliness. She used to work for the Terror, played by Jackie Earle Haley, that's not here today, but he's amazing. And she just finds...
Bears.
Huh?
Bad News Bears.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. And so she finds herself working for Ramses, who she thinks is a complete moron. She has no idea how she got here, and she just, I feel like it's something that people can relate to, that you just feel that, how did you get here, and how can I keep going, and what do I have to do to change? So I thought that was really neat as far as supervillains go.
It's interesting that, to a degree, all you have to do to really parody superhero movies and stories is to add dimension to the characters, and all of a sudden, that in itself becomes kind of more funny and entertaining than the films usually are, because it's usually good or bad, good and evil, and that's really it.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about Tick's character, and one of his defining characteristics is that he's got this kindness. He's kind to people, and I thought. In fact, I think all of the characters, all the ones we play, we all have moments of kindness to people, you know? Mm-hmm. Like there's a bit where your character, Michael plays Ramsey is one of the villains, and whose theme is he's a pharaoh, and he lives in a kind of pharaoh themed.
It's his brand.
It's his brand. It's branding.
It's worked so far.
But what is that scene where one of your minions comes up?
He's all breathless.
He's all breathless.
Yeah. He comes running in and to tell me news about Arthur, and Ramsey's first reaction is, "Hey, take a minute. Okay, you all right? You fine?" And then it's like, "Come on, we got to go." But it's true. Like everybody has those little moments of humanity and weird decency,
Yeah, kindness, and maybe kindness and selflessness is kind of like old-fashioned
and hysterical. Kindness is hysterical when people are nice to each other.
Because we know it's not real.
It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Michael, talk about Ramses. What is his backstory that makes him, I guess, a parody of what a normal villain would be?
Well, he's kind of stepped into the power vacuum in the absence of the terror, and established himself as the crime overlord. He's special, but he's not super. And he's running all of the nefarious dealings in the city, and loves lording his position over Ms. Lint, who's kind of a thorn in his side, but he likes having her around, I think, because he likes the fact that he can, step on her at times, or she can't say anything about it, at least in the beginning. But it turns out, we learn that he's actually, as much as he loves branding himself as this Egyptian pharaoh, he's actually from Minnesota, and is just, self-styled business impresario and bad guy. And I think it's, it is that vulnerability that everybody has that gets exposed in these moments of kindness and moments of foolishness that I think is the other aspect of the villains that makes them appealing and not just loathsome or two-dimensional.
Now, the last two incarnations of the show were just episodic. There was no serial storyline running underneath. Can we expect there to be a sort of a longer running storyline throughout the first season of this, to have the episodes kind of to be continued into the next?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when Ben went in and pitched to Amazon, he told them, "Hey, here's what 5 seasons would be," and it's all in flux. But he said, "This is the arc I'd love to tell over the course of a series. And here's what the season would be." And I definitely feel this season, we talked about that quote that I'm going to misattribute now, but that good drama should be surprising but inevitable. Yeah. I mean, the season definitely builds up to everything it should build up to, It doesn't close any doors, but it's like there is a thrust to this story we're telling over these episodes, most definitely.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that we got David Fury is one of the is the showrunner, is the other main writer, and I think his part of his influence is like he's done like tons and tons of TV dramas, and I think he won Emmys for 24
and Lost too. He wrote Walkabout, which is like the best episode of Lost ever.
Right.
Let's nerd out for a second.
I worked with him on Fringe too, and he similarly had great arcs in that story.
Anyway, I was talking about 24.
Right.
And it's because I noticed that digital clock over there. And when the Tick episodes end, I do feel that same sort of thrill of like, what's going to happen next? Even though I know, it's got that urgency, hasn't it?
I'll say this too, not to stretch this answer out too much, but this is a thing I really love about this show, is I feel like in the streaming era, now that people know, the people making TV shows know that you're not going to have people who casually watch a show. They're going to watch every episode. They're going to watch the whole series or not. It's not, oh, I might be home on Tuesday. If I am, I'll catch an episode of The X-Files. Storytelling's become hyper-serialized, but I feel like with a lot of streaming shows I see, and also on network shows and cable shows, it feels like they just write a 300-page script and then edit it every 30 pages, The individual episodes are just kind of arbitrary start and stop points because they're just making a 10-hour movie or 6-hour movie, whatever it is. And this show, I think there's a bigger thing. The sum is greater than the parts, but I also think each episode's really like an episode. Like, there's a larger story we're telling, but each episode has its own sort of thematic concerns. I mean, when we're trying to remember which episode is which, we go, right, okay, so episode 3 is the party, episode 4 is this,
Well, that's the best kind of TV, to be honest, and not to talk about a different show, but, the golden age of television, which is a really terrible phrase, is always referred to for The Sopranos. And The Sopranos was always this wonderfully serialized show that had very self-contained, amazing episodes that you could always refer back to. It's how you kind of keep people remembering their favorite moments, and they don't just remember a good show overall. Talk about the look of the show. Was Wally Feister the director of the pilot? Did he direct more than one episode, or just he directed 2? He's the director of photography behind The Dark Knight, Batman Returns, I think, or Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Returns. Did you expect the production design and everything to look as amazing as it did? It's a beautifully filmed show.
What, me?
Anyone who wants to field that question.
Sound better. Just.
Yes.
Well,
I don't know.
Did they pitch that to you or talk to you about it? Like, no, look, this is going to look a lot different than you would expect.
Yeah, well, it does look pretty amazing, I think. Seeing Ramsey's lair, for instance, I mean, that looks like something from a movie. And the attention to detail in the... I mean, he's got a refrigerator in his lair that is like a sarcophagus. It's like King Tut's too. It's so stupid, but it's so beautifully made. This thing is just gorgeous, And yeah, the production values are pretty great. Wow, my vocabulary good today, isn't it?
I think the answer is you hope it's going to look that good. You as an actor, you read scripts and you imagine the best version of it in your mind, and then so often you end up on set and you're like, oh God, this is what it is. And they go, well, we had to rewrite the scene because we couldn't get a truck, so now it's a bicycle. And there's a lot of that. And with this, it just constantly felt like there was a lot of attention and care and craft and money and time.
It felt like a movie. It felt like filming a movie.
Well, and I think it kind of has to, because I also don't feel like it's a parody per se, but it is commenting on the superhero landscape, and I think that's part of why it is transformed with each new iteration, because the landscape changes, and right now the superhero landscape is so heightened and it's so serious and the effects are so intense. In order to comment on that and also reveal some of the absurdity of that, we have to mirror the production values of those movies,
A thing that Ben has always been really good at is every version of the Tick has kind of reflected what's going on in superhero culture at that time. So the comics were really using the art style of Frank Miller, and all these guys were really big at that moment. The cartoon was on at the same time as the X-Men cartoon, and Batman cartoon was in the same style. And I think they knew if this show was going to work, they had to put the effort into making it look as good as the Marvel Netflix shows or anything else out there, because the gambit is that it will make it funnier if it looks as legitimate, and then the funny stuff happens within that serious-looking kind of tapestry.
And also, that doesn't just apply to superhero stuff. I think it's just TV in general. It's changed so much that, like watching Game of Thrones the other day. The episode.
Should we just talk about the last episode of Game of Thrones for the rest of this?
The previous to last one. The
Spoils of War.
Spoils of War. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 704. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best things I've ever experienced in any medium. And that it's a TV show, right? But it's this is where we are now. It's not 2000. I guess. When was 24? Would that have been around sort of 2000?
That started in 2001, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that was quite a revolutionary show, wasn't it? I mean, Sorry.
Another
Let's just talk about other TV shows.
Peter
while we're
really
here.
wants to talk about 24. Just let him talk about 24 some more.
So you're a big Kiefer Sutherland fan, Peter. That's cool. That's cool.
Just like 24.
Big 24 fan.
The
over
clock, and it's always ticking.
Yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Hi.
Hi. This one is specifically for Griffin and Peter. First off, show looks really great. I'm really looking forward to watching the whole thing by mooching off of my parents' Amazon Prime account. But I first heard about the show through another project of Griffin's specifically that I have been obsessed with listening to over the past couple of months. So on behalf of all Blank Check listeners, when are we getting Talking Mall? Come on, guys.
I think, so for everyone else who has no idea what we're talking about right now.
You don't need
it's
to
fine.
explain
Please,
this.
I greatly appreciate it. I host a podcast with a film critic, David Sims, where we talk about movies. It originally started out as a Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace specific podcast, where we never talked about any other movie. We thought that would run for years.
How long were you able to keep that up?
4 months.
Once a week?
Once a week, yeah. But we did an episode with Peter. We did a live episode where we just talked about Darth Maul. I think it's finally going to come out this Monday. It's been in the can for a little while, but I think we're trying to sync it up with the release of this. So I think it will come out this Monday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. But listen to my podcast. It's called Blank Check.
Does Peter like Darth Maul as much as he likes 24?
I like Darth Maul as much as he likes 24. I can say that.
I do love 24.
Let's get another question from the audience.
Hey guys.
Hi.
So if each of you had a chance to have a superpower, what would it be?
I have
Should have
two
been
answers.
prepared for this one.
Honestly, if I'm being really, really honest and selfish, I would just love to be able to like eat and drink whatever I want and feel great and look great no matter what. But then I feel like I should say teleporting because that's just amazing, right? So there you go. Take it away.
I'd like to be able to turn back time to November of last year.
You stole my answer.
Oh, really?
It just feels like the most useful
You stole the
one
world
right now.
The
You like
Novemberist.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah, because
Big
Or maybe like
turkey fan?
October, and then there's more
just to
time,
have a little
time.
little run up. Yeah.
I approve. I approve of that one. Griffin?
I fantasize about invisibility a lot.
Fantasize.
I wish I could exist selectively. Like sometimes, that's a very bad quote. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'd love to go completely off the grid and not have a physical form and just be able to lie down and not have to respond to texts. Bad answer.
Griffin makes it very easy, I think, for an audience to want to take care of him as Arthur and just shield him.
Peter, what about you?
Oh, you know, it's probably just I'd like to melt people with my eye lasers. Probably just that.
But like
really.
in October, right? Yes.
On 24.
On 24.
Answers are conditional in October.
Yeah.
What's the next question?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I wanted to know what superhero team, like the Avengers or Justice League or superhero universe, do you think your character would best fit in?
I'm like a diehard Fantastic Four fan. They're like my big team, and I feel like they're very underrepresented right now in popular culture because certain studios keep on messing them up.
Talking about that last movie was amazing.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry, I forgot. But I feel like they had a robot at certain points in their run named Herbie, who was just kind of there to like help out with like he was almost like a secretary.
Was it like initials HERB?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Okay. Well, say it then.
HERBIE. I feel like I could be a human Herbie. I feel like in real life I wouldn't actually want to be a superhero team, but I'd like stay and answer their calls and clean up after them and make sure they get restaurant reservations and what have you.
A little like Rick Moranis in Ghostbusters, or not Rick Moranis.
Even less in the action. Like Janine in Ghostbusters.
Janine, that's what
I'd like to be. Yeah.
Who would you? What superhero team would you fit in?
What team would I be in? I would be my character or me personally.
I did say your character, but you personally.
Oh, well, Griffin changed the rules of the question, so I will say I'll change them back to what you intended, and say that Superior belongs in the. Gosh, I'm really bad at my superhero teams right now. The G.I. Joe universe. Because he would face no opposition whatsoever. Guns, please, you know.
Michael, what about you?
Well, I guess, you know, given my physical resemblance to Yul Brynner, I think probably the kind of Westworld, future world thing would really be kind of my wheelhouse.
Valerie?
Oh, I do think that Dot would do well in the Wonder Woman world because she's a medic and she'd be very useful in the war. She'd kind of clean up after Wonder Woman destroyed a town, and then she'd just follow in the trail of destruction.
Peter, do you want to answer?
I'd like to see the Tick team up with Batman in one of those real dark ones, you know?
Swear to God, I thought you were going to say 24.
Let's get another question.
Hey guys, so I saw the pilot episode for this, and I noticed that the costume for Tick changed a little bit. I was wondering, for those of you guys in costumes, what was it like being the costumes, and how comfortable was it?
That's Peter's answer.
Peter doesn't have much to say about that.
I'm just going to field this first part of it. I was maybe next to you, Val. I was probably one of the luckier ones because I didn't have a mask or a helmet or anything to wear.
Jeans were really skinny.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Yeah,
know, I just.
So were mine, by the way, and they were very tight. A little tight sometimes, a little hard to breathe in it. Other than that, I had it pretty good. Didn't have a mask on.
This is the first time I've been on a show that my wardrobe was definitely way easier to handle than the men. I can say Peter had it the worst.
Yeah. Peter had it the worst.
A lot of us had contact lenses. I couldn't see out of my left eye whenever I was working, so I really had to be careful not to walk into anything or trip or fall off the side of the stage. And I wore heels, which sucks. But I mean, I feel bad being like, oh, my eye, my feet. And meanwhile, he had this huge suit.
What was the suit, Peter?
God.
It was,
we don't talk about the suit.
It was, I don't know.
Mention the suit.
I was thinking about, that scene in Silence of the Lambs where, towards the end, where Hannibal Lecter gets wheeled out and he's strapped to the the trolley and he's in a mask. And I was watching that and I thought, oh, that looks really comfortable. that looks great. Yeah. I was being sarcastic there, in case you didn't know. It was very uncomfortable. It was really super uncomfortable. I was saying, this is true. I was doing ADR, which is additional dialogue recording. Is that what it stands for? Where you re-record bits of your performance because of noise or bad acting or whatever. And I was doing this. I was watching some of the later episodes, and every scene, every new scene, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I almost fainted here because of the heat. Oh yeah, I almost died here because I couldn't breathe. That was every single scene.
I remember the scene that we were doing where I was electrocuting you. You took off the suit after, and you looked 20 pounds thinner. And he was just drenched in sweat. I felt so bad.
But I'll say, the incredible thing, and I'm not just saying this, is, I'm very, very close to Peter most days, and I see the second they call cut, it's like spirits literally zoom out of his body and water pours out and whatever. And I'm this close, but the second they call action, he goes into some weird state where he uses his pain or ignores his pain or whatever it is, and I never, because I go in the ADR and I remember what he was going through every day, and I can never see it. I'm looking in his eyes for that little bit of pain that comes through, and I can never see it. And I got lucky because Arthur is not comfortable, in general as a person, and certainly not in this world. So I never have to look regal or heroic. I constantly have to be kind of uneasy in this suit and in this environment and in these fight scenes. But I look at what like Brendan and Peter had to do when they have to fly or jump and actually look confident and at ease. It's
Yeah, that's a good point. That was the challenge. It was not necessarily the suit. The suit was a bit of a challenge, but it was really the getting rigged up and doing the green screen stuff and having to look like it is nothing to you. Like like flying is second nature. It's like, it's the same as combing your hair. It's the easiest thing ever. I don't comb my hair. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge. The suit was nothing, but being hung up by wires in the suit and pretending that you weren't being bent in a direction that you weren't supposed to be bent in, that's tougher.
Whereas every time my character flies, I'm afraid that I'm about to die. So it was just action, and I just yelled everything that I was feeling.
I was so jealous of that. I was so jealous of that.
Meanwhile, I was wearing a velour tracksuit.
Yeah, you got real lucky.
Yeah.
Guys, the show is so funny. It's incredible. It blew my expectations away. I think it's going to blow the audience's expectations away. It comes out on Amazon August
25th.
August 25th. Guys, give it up for the cast of The Tick. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Thank you.